Joining me now to explore this further is Jacob Kirkegaard, who's a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Jacob, could Marine Le Pen realistically continue this wave of populism that we've seen sweep through the UK and the United States?
She could, but I will say I'm very skeptical because the one thing she's got against her is in some ways what was also a problem for Donald Trump, which is that it's very difficult for her to expand her voting coalition beyond the sort of hardcore supporters, which typically amount to 20 to 30% of the French electorate. But the difference is between the election here in the United States and in France is that historically in French presidential elections, voting participation is typically somewhere between 75 and 80% of French voters, which means that she has to go out and find another at least 10, 15% of the electorate to support her. And historically, her and her father, who used to run her party, have not been able to do that. And I frankly doubt she will be able to do that in the future as well.
But she still has some time because, as we've all seen, and as Kate mentioned in her story, the polls have really had it wrong in the recent U.S. election, the Brexit, even the FARC referendum vote in Colombia. Segments of the population have complained that they haven't been heard by politicians. So are we seeing some kind of trend here, or is this just cyclical?
No, I mean, look, there's no doubt that in the number of the instances that you mentioned, polling has been way off. It certainly was the case here in the United States. So today, we cannot, the possibility of a huge offset is obviously there. But as I said, I think the French electoral system, which is in many ways designed to prevent these types of populist movements from gaining the actual political power, I think it will prevail, as I said, also combined with the fact that participation tends to be very high and her support is not yet widespread, or not widespread enough at least.
There does seem to be some common issues here among all these instances: immigration, the fear of globalization, the status of the economy. What do you think we're seeing here play out across the world?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that there are groups in most advanced economies in the West that have not benefited from the overall meager economic growth that advanced economies have seen in recent decades. In fact, they arguably have been the losers from globalization, and the institutions internally in countries like the United States, the UK, and even France have been generally quite poor at helping these people and essentially channeling some of the benefits, overall benefits from globalization to these more marginal groups. And now they are rebelling. So this is what drives Marine Le Pen. But as I said, I think ultimately she will come up short.
France goes to the polls in just a few months, starting in April. Any other countries in the EU to watch, perhaps heading for a more right turn or some kind of shakeup politically? What are you looking for?
Well, I think, again, we need to be a little careful with saying that Marine Le Pen solely represents a hard shift to the right. Yes, she certainly represents right-wing policies on immigration and many social issues, but actually on issues on economic policy, trade, social expenditures, and other types of spending, she's actually very, very left-wing. And actually more left-wing than the sitting president, François Hollande, in the same way that arguably Donald Trump was to the left of Hillary Clinton on trade, and certainly did not, in contrast to many other Republicans, want to reduce Medicare and Medicaid expenditures here in the United States. So this is not just a right-wing shift that we're seeing potentially in European countries. It's really a populism that is both left and right, which again is actually not that dissimilar to what Donald Trump represents.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jacob Kirkegaard, we appreciate your insight as always.